McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about dating apps, what's wrong with them, what's right about them. We'll have some reactions to some videos on YouTube, namely the great Jordan Peterson. And the first one we'll touch on is how Tinder is reshaping human relationships. We'll get into that in a moment. We also have real breakup stories on deck that were written into writemac.com. And if you have a story you want to share, send it in. There it is right there. And we'll get into that. And as I often say, real breakup advice for real stories compared to a lot of the general advice that's out there right now, which is good advice. Is it tailored to your situation? Is it specialized to your situation? That's another story, right? So in regards to getting into real stories where you could maybe possibly say, oh, I can relate to that. I think there's a difference there in just saying, you know, you need to go into no contact and be on your purpose. If you feel like you're tired of that message and would like to be a little bit more specific, we're going to get into real breakup stories here daily. So right off the bat, we're going to start with how Tinder is reshaping human relationships. I haven't watched this video all the way through, so it'll be kind of fresh. Obviously got a lot of respect for the great Jordan Peterson and his take as an academic, intellectual individual that, you know, extremely thought-oriented in this field. So we're going to get into that one. And then there's a few more. There's a lot of negative stuff on dating apps. I personally don't think everything is negative about dating apps. I think that I was just talking to a client recently about this. I think anything you go into with this predetermined mindset, and this is what's happening a lot now, especially with this idea that you know, all women are masculine, or all women want guys that are 6 foot in America. All women have higher expectations than needed. There's a lot to that, but the idea that you already have that in your head, you're going to be filtering for that. You know, there's got to still be some good women out there in America with the 70 million, you know, the 368 million population. What's the population in America right now? Right? And they're like, all women are like this. All the women are extremely masculine. It's like, there's no gems. You're not capable of finding one. If that's the case, move. That's what I did, right? All right, so let's get into it. Like I said, go ahead and comment on the things. How Tinder is reshaping human relationships with Jordan Peterson here. I'd like your guys' take also. Let's get started on this.
And it's radically underestimated in terms of its potency, because it produces hyper-successful predatory males and reduces rejection. It eliminates rejection, because, I mean, you can be totally rejected, in which case you're a failure on Tinder. But in normal pre-mating interaction, let's say, there's a high probability of rejection, especially on the part of males. And that technology...
Well, there's actually research on this.
Yes.
On Tinder.
Yes.
So there's research basically showing that. So on Tinder, women they like, you know, swipe right. They like the profiles of only 4% of the men that they see on the app. Whereas for men, when they see female profiles, they swipe right or like more than 60%. That's 60% of the profiles they see.
So that's really worth concentrating on, because that's a great example of hypergamy. Right? So women mate across and up success hierarchies, and men mate across and down. Right. So, and the women like men who are about 4 years older, cross-culturally. They like men who manifest signs of success, as well as being handsome and personable and all of that. And the reason for that, as far as I can tell, is that they're looking to equalize the economic disparity that exists, because women take a harder hit from sex and pregnancy than men. So they're looking to equalize that. And no wonder they're looking for someone who's competent. This is for long-term mating, who's competent and generous, right? You want both of those. So competence would be intelligence, general cognitive ability, and the markers that go along with that. They want conscientiousness or openness, as well as other desirable personality traits. And they want generosity, honesty, all of those. But so they're looking for someone who can provide. Well, it's not because they're greedy precisely. It's because, well, they're going to put themselves in a more vulnerable position if they have a child. And we know this because even affluent women who have a child by themselves or who get divorced tend to drop down the socioeconomic hierarchy a fair bit, which is, of course, why alimony payments and all of that are necessary. So this hypergamy means women are much more selective in their mating than men are, and that's true cross-culturally, and it's not surprising because they pay a bigger price for sex.
All right, let me just get my 2 cents in here really quick, okay? So hypergamy, we understand that women date equal or higher up, right? This idea, though, research shows 6%, right? And if you hear people, 6%, women only choose or swipe on Tinder 6% of the time. So the research isn't being shown here. It's not being discussed. How many people were from the sample size? Everyone that uses Tinder, right? And then here was the interesting thing when he said 60% of guys swipe on 60% of what's available, right? A lot of guys, right? I think guys are more apt to go, I'll just see what happens here. I just want to get laid tonight. Like, they're more apt to be that way. But these studies, what happens with them, right? This guy's go, research shows, studies show, right? And he goes out, all right, hypergamy, okay, yeah. The women are gonna be lured towards the top 6% seems a bit extreme. I would say the top 10 or 20%. All right, but regardless of what it is, someone hears that and they go, why try? It's impossible. There's no chance. Right? Oh, it's all rigged. Oh, I don't have a shot. It's like, well, have you maximized your look? What are you looking for? Right? It's like the things that you're going to complain about in these dating apps. Is it possible for you still to succeed? Now, the other part of that is everyone's saying that one side's being unrealistic. The women are being unrealistic. All they want is the top 5 or 10%, which is hypergamy, right? They're going to be, let me put it to you this way. Let me put it into another thing. So the way women and men used to meet, right, which wasn't that long ago, 20, 30 years ago before the internet, usually workplaces, neighborhoods, churches, communal events, even though we had the telephone, school, right? So it would be about proximity and environments that you hang out in, okay? So within those environments, hypergamy would happen, right? And then people would, maybe settle for the scraps. So let's just say the high school cheerleader in a town of 5,000 people, right? And so the high school's only a couple hundred. The high school cheerleader's going to end up with the high school quarterback, right? Something like that. But here's the thing. If hypergamy is going to be what's going on, you got to maximize the environments you're in, right? So now Tinder changes the environment. It's not even an environment so much to say, it's a different ball game altogether. And so what really comes down to is pictures, profiles, presentations. Now, women have the advantage of wearing a ton of fucking makeup, but guys can change their image on these pictures and do, Photoshop, right? So they have some advantages too. But that's what's happening, the initiation there. Now, some people love Tinder. A lot of people find it as one of those things that, it's better to hook up. It depends on your age and where you're at. It's not for everyone. But I would say for the people at the bottom of the barrel, and that's a harsh thing to say, maybe we're always talking about who's a 10, who's an 8, who's a 9. What about people that are 2s? What about people that are 3s? Are they more apt to find each other on Tinder? Because if they're honest with themselves, they know they're a 2 or 3, and they might be, let's just say that they're like, no, I'm a 5, I'm a 4. Like, they kind of know, right? They kind of know. They're going to be more apt to be able to find that other person that doesn't have as many options. It's just along the way, you're going to get rejected. Along the way, you're not going to get swiped as much. What I think happens is you see a lot of these options that you like, and you go, I want that. I want that. And the thing is, I think this is subliminal, and I haven't heard this brought up before, but subliminally, when you swipe or you look at things online to buy, like Amazon, you have the opportunity to get them. You have the opportunity to buy them. You have the opportunity to get that item. And really, when you're looking through swiping, it's like, oh, item, 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 shopping, shopping. And then you go, oh, actually, I can't have this. They're not interested. Or they snap back, hey, and then you got to play this little tit for tat game. And people get really frustrated with it. It's just a bigger pool of people. So if you don't like Tinder, then control your environments better. Go somewhere else. But it's here to stay. All right? But I mean, this idea that 60%, let's rewind back. Tinder specifically is more of a hookup app from what I understand. Right? It's widely known that would be one that one night stand type things. If we're going to be honest here, a lot of people might have found their husband or wife there, but it's far and few between. So the dating apps, it's not so. And like you got someone like Peterson talking about it, right? A lot of respect for him. I love his point of view. That's why I'm reacting to his video. Has he been on Tinder? I haven't been on Tinder, right? So people's experiences, if you got 100 people that have been on Tinder, you'd have to ask them how long you've been on Tinder, how long you've been. It's like they'd all be different experiences because I've talked to people, they love it. I've talked to other people, it's horrible. Well, it could come down to the way you communicate too. There's so many variables involved in this. All right, let's get back to it.
It's more dangerous for women because they can get pregnant, and it might be more dangerous emotionally as well. I believe that would be a reflection of their higher levels of agreeableness and higher levels of negative emotionality. So women do put themselves at risk more, and that might be why there's such a intense debate about what constitutes consent on campuses, despite these beliefs in polyamory and all of these things. But so anyways, on Tinder, as you said, women select 4% of the men.
Yep.
So that means,
and I would imagine that 4% is very high up on what you're calling, the success hierarchy. I have a friend, a good-looking guy. He was very active on Tinder for a while, and he accumulated more than 20,000 matches on the app.
20,000.
20,000. And he was so successful that Tinder pinpointed him early on and gave him all kinds of free perks and bonuses and lifted his radius restrictions, gave him the Tinder Gold app or whatever version of it, basically trying to entice him to continue to use the app. Yeah, they wanted to entice him.
This is so amazing.
They never want you to leave.
These are unbelievably pernicious and vicious broad-scale social experiments that are far more potent than anything like government policy.
Well,
he's in Genghis Khan territory with 20,000.
I don't know if he slept with all 20,000.
Yeah, well,
maybe
my
10,000.
Suspicions are he tried. And I know
he'll get a kick out of that.
That records for like athletes, for example, and movie stars, there's some of the men have reportedly slept with thousands of women. Yes, Wilt Chamberlain, and there's others who are in the same category, but they're men who have women throwing themselves at them all the time.
Let's not underrate the power of fucking exaggeration here, okay? Like, I have a friend. Okay, I have a friend too. I have friends that fucking exaggerate, especially when it comes to women sometimes. And this guy is sitting here. I'm just this guy interviewing Jordan Peterson. I don't know if his friends would call. It's like, come on, right? And we're talking about matches. How did this guy even fucking record this? Did he have a spreadsheet, or like, you know what I mean? He's keeping track of that. And then within it, he's like, not confirmed. We went, and then he goes, maybe it was 10,000. He just kind of said that under his breath. Just total exaggeration. Jordan Peterson like, what? 20,000. It's like, none of this is being confirmed. We haven't seen the guy. And let me add one more thing to this is the kind of stuff that people run with, right? They're like, oh yeah, this guy. I haven't seen the guy that got 20,000 matches. What city is he in? Number one, environment. Number two, can I take a look at the matches? Can I see what comes up on there? Is there are these all high quality matches? Are these in different environments? Because there's some areas of Tinder that there wouldn't even be 20,000 options, right? In certain, so when someone just throws, I have a friend. Yeah, I have a friend too. It's like it's such secondhand information, and then it goes like this. Is it possible that someone had that many matches? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, what does it all mean? Then Jordan Peterson, some of these athletes, Will Chamberlain said he was with 2,000 women. Did he document it? I'm sure some of these athletes have been with a lot, but I mean, the numbers, there are people, especially men when it comes to women, that astronomically exaggerate. They just do. Right? Have you ever if you were in any high school or you grew up, you always knew some guy that sold wolf tickets. That's what we used to call it as a kid. And they were just, they would believe their own lies and they exaggerate. You know what I mean? To say I have 1,000 views, it might say, I have 20,000 matches. It's actually more like 1,000, which is a lot, but you just put extra sauce on it. Right? I mean, that's where this comes in. Like, I know someone. Okay, well, this is going to be anecdotal, right? This is going to be relative to the thing. And then someone goes, oh yeah, now I know, right? I would want to know more about that, right? So let's get back into it.
Time lining up for them, and I've read biographies of people who had that sort of thing happen as well.
But that's not the typical male experience.
No, the typical male experience is all rejection.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Right. They might get a couple matches a week.
Right. So you see what's happening is that Tinder is one of the forces that's transforming monogamy into polygamy. And the problem with polygamy is that it follows a Pareto distribution, like the distribution of wealth, is that some tiny minority of men get all the sexual opportunity and all the rest get virtually none. And that is a recipe for social instability. I mean, that
sort of deregulation of romantic relationships, whereas in the past it was expected for you to have one partner and over time settle down, whereas now it's a total free-for-all. I mean, there are aspects to this that a lot of people don't think about. I mean, I talk to young people, so I have younger friends who I talk to who are sort of very active on the apps and in sort of the dating scene, and they'll tell me things like it's even easier to cheat. So in the past, if you wanted to be unfaithful to your partner, it was risky because, essentially like you had the same social circle, you had the same friends, everyone knew everyone else. But now with the apps, you can match with someone who is completely outside of your social reality, outside of your partner's social reality. You can have a very discreet rendezvous. No one will ever know about this. Ghosting has become more common. I don't know if you know about ghosting, but it's basically where you're in a relationship with someone, and after you have sex, once or however many times, then you just vanish. You never see that person again. Delete them from your phone, block them on social media. You never have to see them again. And there's no social cost to this.
That's a real psychopathic conquest strategy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because the psychopaths, they tend to form relationships that are very predatory and then disappear. Mm-hmm. Because that way their reputations stay intact as long as they can continue to disappear.
But I'm interested.
So you're a psychopath if you ghost someone, huh? That's interesting. And this guy that's doing the interviewing, talking about these subjects. I have a friend that actually told me this, but I haven't been on Tinder. I haven't dated in 10 years. Right? It's like, okay. There's a lot of reasons for someone to ghost someone. It's an ugly term. But there's reasons someone. Here's the thing about dating apps. They're here to stay. Like, someone has the opportunity to meet someone and hook up and have a one-night stand and get their jollies off, right? Okay? So most of the females and men know what that's about going into that. There's a lot of women out there that use Tinder for the same reason, right? Someone says this is really bad. The ghosting thing, right? Someone meets someone on a dating app, they hook up, and the next morning the person's like wanting to go to breakfast, plan out Christmas dinner with the family, make wedding plans, and the individual's like, whoa, what happened here? that person's probably not going to contact them again. So this premise, like, this is what people are doing now. They're just ghosting each other on these dating apps. It's like, this is where Peterson, who I have a lot of respect for, he's entering into this arena with some ignorance, asking some questions, and ignorance in a good way. This other guy's coming. I have a friend that's been on the dating app that's actually done this. I have a friend that actually told me that this ghosting, it's like, so you're a spectator, right? You're a spectator on the sidelines that has no game time experience involved in this. This is, he's throwing these things out there. It's like, what's your experience, dude? You know what I mean? But ghosting, or if you just use the term, hey, I think we're on different playing fields here and we're done, right? These are extremely shallow relationships that happen online. The idea that it's psychopathic, I think, is a bit extreme. Okay? All right, let's get back to it.
In what you had said before about whether this is actually sort of cultivating psychopathy in young people and young men, where, you know, in the past, you know, typically a psychopath would do that on their own, but now with the apps and the technology, removing all of the friction from, you know, breaking up with someone or having to communicate with someone that you no longer want to see them, I think a lot of people who ghost others, they're not even thinking in those terms. They're not thinking, I want to maliciously hurt this person, or I don't care about this person. It's like, it's easy. You know, you press a few buttons on your smartphone and you can move on to the next conquest. And I think a lot of people wouldn't act that way otherwise.
Well, the question would be, what happens to you after you do that 4 or 5 times? You know, let's say you're not particularly psychopathic to begin with. It's like you learn what you practice. And I would say, look, if you're using people continually as a means to an end, and I think sex is probably the most effective way of doing that, then you're establishing a pattern of interaction between you and other people at perhaps the deepest possible level. And so if you do that repeatedly, first of all, you're certainly not engaging in anything that might be regarded as a meaningful or deep relationship. Quite the contrary, you regard that as excess baggage that's an impediment to your next conquest, so to speak. So how would that not? I mean, now you said there was research on Tinder. Has there been research on the relationship between the dark triad and these hyper successful men?
Well, I've seen research on dark triad and Tinder use, and, you know, people who are high on dark triad do tend to be more successful, accumulate more partners. Specifically, whether, you know, this is related to gender and whether men are more successful or more likely to hurt others using these apps. I haven't seen anything on that. I have interestingly seen, I think this was from Pew, where they broke down the data by education level. And they asked people questions like, have you ever been harassed on this dating app? Have you ever met someone on a dating app who inflicted physical harm on you? Basically, the wide variety of negative experiences through using dating apps. And they found that people who are not college graduates were far more likely, the women were far more likely to report negative experiences on the dating apps compared to college educated women. And to me, this is also indicative of this, you know, this sort of social class divide. Another manifestation of the luxury belief of sexual promiscuity, where, you know, you introduce these dating apps, you have no idea what's going to happen or how this is going to warp society and how people are going to interact in romantic relationships. And it's disproportionately harming lower educated, lower income women who are, like you're saying, they're probably more likely to meet.
All right, I gotta say this. Dating apps aren't the only problem. If you're going to get into being promiscuous and you know, dealing with body counts and having multiple women, you got to get into the music and the movies of the day right now. Think about that, from like the content that's out there right now, that's popular, is pushing this agenda. If you look at the 1950s, Leave It to Beaver, the TV shows, they would have families. They would have things like this. That 1960s music, 1950s music had more love to it. You know what I'm saying? So this idea that Tinder did all this, no. No, this is an agenda that's pushed in a lot of music, a lot of movies, and it's glorified. Getting back to what Rick said, the 80-20 thing. The 80-20 thing, if you guys, Pareto principle, I'm very aware of it. It applies to a lot of things in business. It applies to a lot of things in life. The top 20% get 80%. It's like when I used to be in real estate, the top 20% of real estate agents do 80% of the business. The top 20% of YouTubers have 80% of the views. Okay? That the top 20% of men, however you would rate that, right? Whatever the ratings are for that, if that's 6 feet or what, like you go into all these different things, get 80% of the women. Sure. Now, what they're saying is that the top 20% of women don't get 80% of the men because men are willing to go lower. But I think men are willing to go lower in regards to just hooking up, right? I don't know if men are willing to go lower long-term in a relationship. I'm certainly sure if men are neglected long enough, they'll stay in a relationship that isn't great in lieu of the fact that they don't want to get back out there. What happens with this research and studies is you get these massive, men do this, women do that. The typical male experience. The typical male, what does that even mean? Jordan Peterson's typical male experience, this guy that's doing the interview, who I forgive me because I'm showing him in the video, I should know his name or what his background is. I certainly don't think he has the typical male experience or anything near mine, just by the way he's talking. Just by the way I read this study. I read that study. A friend of mine said this. Where is there any, and the studies are like, I think the study said this, and it's like going all over the place. And then people watch this and they go, oh yeah, it's true of all men. It's like, what's true for fucking you? Like, tell me about you. Tell me how you tick. Tell me about the kind of women you like or want to be with. Now, here's the interesting thing. There's another one of these where the guy came out, he was a data analyst, and he was saying that beyond, the top 20% getting 80% of the women, the Brad Pitts of the world, the Michael Jordans or whatever, the people at the top of the status, most money, best looking, right? Oh, surprise, surprise, it's not fair. It is. It's from the beginning of time, these guys have been dating multiple women, right? Kings. Like if you look at like any level of kings, presidents, right? People that people think, wow, this guy had a really good heart. He was a really good person. They've cheated too. They've had multiple women too, right? Like there's big time people that even as leaders they weren't corrupt or they were all could be. I think Franklin Roosevelt was one of them. Like you wouldn't think it, but he had one. He had a side piece. Mandela supposedly had a side piece or two. Martin Luther King supposedly had a side piece or two. Great people, great work, right? Now someone's like, my point is the dating app doesn't differentiate this. And then what happens though is these guys that are at the bottom, it's like, it's not fair. Oh, research shows, so it's against me. Get your ass in the gym. Start making more money. Start playing the game the way you need to play the game or fucking go into a new fish tank, right? Move. Go somewhere else. But this idea of sitting in it, someone's a psychopath because they ghost someone because they don't want to talk to them again when it's a shallow relationship to start with, right? I'm not sure that's true, right? All right, let's get back to it.
These psychopaths are probably perhaps less adept in some ways at screening for certain kinds of guys. The other thing is,
especially if they're single mothers, because they're a lot easier to prey upon. I mean, their straits are a lot more desperate, and they've knocked themselves out of the single girl dating market and lowered their market value, so to speak. I hate to speak of it in terms like that, but it's clearly the case because to initiate a relationship with a woman who has a child already is to initiate a relationship that has a lot higher upfront cost. The complexity of negotiating the relationship with the child, the additional responsibility that has to be taken on instantly. And none of that's the least bit trivial. So that means, and we know that in general, if you do imagine a triangular representation of a social hierarchy on any valued dimension, the people who are at the lowest level are those who are most susceptible to any sort of destructive tendency that comes whistling through. They don't have as much social support. They're a lot closer to abject poverty. They don't have the broad social network or the opportunities. So everything affects them disproportionately, including epidemic illnesses. And it's the case throughout the kingdom of life that low status confers vulnerability. Oh, that's why people go for higher status, at least in part. Yeah. So the Tinder, I mean, I don't know how widespread Tinder use is. I don't know that much about Tinder, but when I first found out about it, I thought this is a technology that, well, they certainly named it properly because Tinder starts fires, and it's a fire starter, and not just sexually.
Getting back into it, right? I'm going to go into the comments a little bit on this, and it's just interesting to see that thing come up about Jordan Peterson after, where everyone's producing a perception or an image a little bit bigger than they are. You see him in his suit. You see him in kind of this thing at the end. Obviously, Jordan Peterson has changed a bit over time here with some of the things he's doing in a good way, right? But he's become a TV image, right? Why am I saying that? Is that Tinder is, you're creating some type of image, and there's a playbook to it. Take really good pictures, because that's going to be the first impression. I've talked about this before. Old school dating used to be, yeah, there's attraction, there's cold approaches, but you usually met someone at work or your neighborhood, your school, in your general vicinity of an area, and so you knew them a little bit. You were attracted to them, but the attraction was built up. You kind of had a background. You knew some mutual friends. Totally different ballgame. And so now that Tinder's here, you can have these casual encounters, casual hookups, and this just creates more shallow relationships. Now, if you don't like it, then don't use Tinder, but start hanging out in different places to meet more people. But it's going to be here to stay. To say someone's psychopathic because they ghost someone on Tinder, I think they're not really. I think there's some use in ghosting someone. I don't like the term, but right now, the way there's all these kind of shallow interactions and connections, sometimes people have to do that to move on. Let me get into the comments, and then we'll get into a story. That went longer than I thought. Let's see here. Kevin Samuel used to make a good argument to this, and I asked the same question last night and never got an answer. Could a woman making $100,000 a year take the guy making $35,000? Serious. Depends on where they live. I have known of relationships, and I'm going to be honest with you, Rick. I have known of these directly through friends, family, and colleagues. Not many, where the individual made over 100, took care of the household as a female, and the guy didn't have a job and took care of the kids, like Mr. Mom. So I have seen it work. It didn't start that way, though. But I think if a guy's good looking enough or has a high enough frame, he has other things to offer, he can overcome the money problem. Because if you think about it, and it's not common, it's probably that 20-80% thing. But there's struggling artists out there, or I just thought of one right now, a friend of a friend, and I met the couple directly, right? And this guy was a sculptor, artist. He was from Argentina. He had an accent. Hey, how are you doing? He had this like charming kind of way about him. And his girlfriend made probably triple the money he made, came from a very rich family, basically put him through school. They were in their late 20s, right? And she did everything for him. She worshipped him, right? She made more money than him. I don't know if it was $100,000, but quite a bit more. And he knew it. but she was highly attracted to him. And he had this, like I said, he was a great artist. He had charm, he had character. So I do think it's possible. I do think it's possible, and I think it's more than possible than you think. It just, if the guy that's making $35,000 is attractive, right? He's a musician, he's got an edge to him. There's something else there, then yeah, it can be overcome. Is it common? No. But what I would say is a lot of the examples being used online and in YouTube now, they're using these women that are highly pretentious, like a Fresh and Fit show, highly pretentious, and absolutely that's going to be true to them. But to say that all women are like that, I don't think it's true, because there are some women, especially professional women, like lawyers, doctors, what have you, that own businesses that aren't necessarily that. Here's the thing though, that woman that makes 100K that's with the guy that makes 35K, she's going to rule the relationship when it comes to finances. She's going to have more leverage. She's going to hold more cards. She's going to, dare I say, hold a little bit more masculinity probably. Now, there's outliers to this, but to say that it just never happens, right? Because here's the thing. If the guy, listen to this, and I like that you asked this question, Rick, because it's good. If the guy makes 30, 40K a year, right, and the woman makes 100, right, he's obviously got to offer something else like looks, status, right? And the woman probably doesn't look as good. The woman probably has a little bit of trouble pulling good-looking guys. So he's going to go down on the looks thing for him in lieu of being taken care of money-wise. Because there is men out there, they don't call them gold diggers. They take advantage where they can. They use women for money, and they're good at it, right? They just don't call it that. So is it possible? Yeah. But the guy better have other things on the Richter scale higher. Does that make sense? All right, let me get back into nightclubs, phones, chat lines, concerts, events, schools, where traditional business meeting. I think it just comes to why people are using the apps. Tinder is a game changer as opposed to traditional methods. I like Coach said, more guys are just try to get laid. I think that's a large percentage of it. They're not there to build relationships. The more options you give an individual, the less they tend to be able to make a decision or want to settle. I think that's absolutely true. If you watch Netflix, it's really hard to choose a movie these days. A paradox of choice, I've often said it. So I think that, yeah, this goes back to if someone grows up in a small town, a farm town, and there's only 100 people in high school, they're going to be more apt to be able to make a decision, right? Because there's less options. That's absolutely true. The 2s and 3s when it comes to guys usually don't get anything. That's not true. I've witnessed it. I went back to California. I was at a wedding. Both of the individuals were 2s or 3s. And they were really happy. They can find each other. Okay? I suppose that odd time they get a match. They do. Yeah, there are way more options now. Thanks, BMAD. Bumble, Hinge are very similar. True Tinder is definitely known for hooking up. I think Tinder has pivoted a bit beyond the instant hookup, yet people still go there to get laid. Secondhand info is what I said. From what city? How is that even possible? Oh, because, like I said, people throw out these numbers. Oh, a friend of mine had 20,000 matches. Oh, let me talk to your friend and let me see the matches. How did he document this? Oh, it might have been 10. It's like you went from 20 to 10,000. That's highly uncredible information. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it possible a male is exaggerating about his action? Absolutely. More like 4. You know how long it would take to even reply to all of them. The conventional ways of dating are no longer exist. Both men and women are, I believe, at that point of where we're adjusting to the new way of doing things. That's why things are all over the place. You know what, Rick? I think that it depends on where you hang out. It depends on where you go. I know in my own life experience, so I won't go anecdotal friends. I won't go clients. I'll go in my own experience. I continuously meet women in my path, where I work, where I hang out, where I go to places. And that's how it's been for a long time. I'm not saying that's for everyone. I'm not saying that dating apps aren't here to stay and they're not dominating. I'm saying that you could still meet women through work, through going to the beach, through different ways. In a modern city, 20,000 matches. You can't get over that one, huh, Rob? Have to have multiple ages, races, religions, contacting. You must be a guy that is. Well, I mean, like if you said you had 20,000 matches, let me see the matches. Can I see what you're talking about? And then he said the guy got like a prize for that. I don't take him serious. Psychopath is definitely a bit extreme. I agree, B-Man. I agree 80-20 for many things. Yeah, man. If men date lower, then the woman is more likely to stay, right? Yeah, man. If men date lower, then the women is more likely to stay, right? Well, you would think so, but if that lower woman, and what scale is this on, right? Like, what is this? What is this, my scale or your scale? Because what you think's low and what I think low. How many times have you? Think about it like this, all right? Think about if you're on this right now. We got 3 on deck. If you're on this right now, think about 2 or 3 of your best friends or family members, right? And think about their significant others, girlfriends or boyfriends, husbands or wives. And if you had to rate them on your scale, like, oh, on a 1 to 10, what do I think of him? I think his wife's she's really nice, but I think she's a 5. She's really nice, but I think she's actually a 4. Like if you were honest with yourself, right? And then you talk to the guy and he's like, nah, I think she's a 7. That's why whenever someone gets in these 1 to 10s and these scales, it's only pertinent to you. It's just your opinion, but somehow you believe like, oh, everyone knows a 10, right? Yeah, there's a certain hierarchy, but there are ones when you get into that 5, 6, 7, 8 where it's gonna scale differently, right? All right, so let's get into a story here. I don't want to get too much into the same video here. But getting back to this, these apps, like I said, they're here to stay. If you don't like them, don't use them. But they do have use, and then learn what works with them, and then consider what city or area you're using them in. They're not universal every single place. The environment or the city you're living is going to probably dictate a little bit more than just the app, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so let's get into one story here. Coach Mac, love your take on these stories. Love your take on these stories. My ex-boyfriend broke up with me 22 days ago. Yes, I'm counting the days. He told me he just needed time and space to figure out what he wants. He kept accusing me of liking his brother, who's only 1 year older than I. I'm 23 and my boyfriend is 30, so he's insecure that he's older and that I'd be more interested in his brother. Okay. That's not a given, right? A 30-year-old guy is not necessarily insecure with a 7-year age difference, I hope. The idea that this is a personal thing he has with his brother, okay? So this isn't like, oh, like this is common or he's insecure. This is an assumption made by you. There's more to this. And honestly, his brother is a good-looking guy, so there you go. But I'm not attracted to his personality at all. He's way too cocky for me, but I know my boyfriend gets insecure because his brother was literally the high school quarterback in college and jock that women just fall over. All right, well, that gives us a visual, right? That gives us an idea of what you're talking about. He's 6'3", and my boyfriend is good looking too, but he's 5'10", which for some reason he always brings up as an insecurity. This is a big thing now that, online there's this big thing that men that are 6 feet get all the women, and there's only 10% of the population that are 6 feet. There's plenty of guys out there that are 5'5", 5'6", and I think it's really interesting that Tom Cruise and a lot of actors, a lot of I didn't think that this was as much. Women are more attracted to guys that are 6 feet or over. Okay, with you, I agree. Men are more attracted to women with big tatas, right? Okay, but does that mean every guy has to have a woman like that? Hell no. So it's like if you talk to women, they're like, this idea that women are like, they're just zeroing in on 6 feet and over. I don't think I don't think it's true. And so I would ask, what content is he consuming where he thinks 5'10" is so bad? And it's not, I wouldn't even say 5'10" is short, right? I think the average height is like 5'10" to 5'11", which for some reason he always brings up as an insecurity. I'm 5'6", so I don't find it to be any big deal. That's good that you mentioned that, because a lot of times for women, it's just a matter of, I just don't want him to be shorter than me. And this is where I think he wants space and time. He really, because of your height, and this is where I think he wants space and time. He really believes I have a thing for his brother, and the minute I confirmed that I found him good looking, he just went crazy. I believe he's got some deep-seated jealousy there because his brother is his parents' golden boy, but I always tell my boyfriend that I love him and I'm a good girlfriend. I know that. Well, one thing that's coming up here, right? It's obvious that the brother's one of these guys that, you know, he's 6'3", the jock, women fall over him. You've admitted that he's good looking. So maybe, you know, you being 23, you've probably unknowingly flirted with him or given him some eye contact, and your boyfriend's noticed it, right? Probably if he's got that much insecurity, he's probably going to have to keep his brother away from you. That being said, there's probably a little bit more to the family history between him and his brother, right? There's something else to this. The idea that you said that he's got this insecurity because the parents have kind of fawned over this guy. His family loves me and his friends love me. I'm not sure what he really wants. I can't prove to him my love and loyalty, and we can't really remove his brother being flirty with me at family gatherings. So earlier, let's just get this verified a little bit. Earlier, you're saying like I don't like him or anything like that. I do think he's good looking, but he's too cocky. It's like you've already kind of considered him. That being said, this is what this platform's for: writing out your story and being honest with yourself. Right now, attraction isn't a choice. So if you're attracted to him, that's okay. Doesn't mean you need to act on it. It's like if I have a long-term girlfriend that I love and I care about and I'm monogamous with, I'm allowed to look at the menu. I'm allowed to have thoughts in my head where I'm like, damn, she's beautiful. Or if she had a good-looking sister, I'm allowed to think she's pretty, right? Now, when you start taking next steps and talking to them in private, setting up, times to meet up, that's a different level. You're at a family gathering and you exchange some talk and you're like that, there's a line to be drawn. There's a line to be drawn in all this. So the line's to be decided by you and your boyfriend. But you know when you stop at that line. And he's got to deal with the fact that, that's how his brother is. So we can't really, I can't prove to him what I love, my love and loyalty. Well, you just do the best you can and you're honest and upfront about that. You need to sit him down and go, look, this is going to be a problem long term. I'm telling you the truth right now. Look me in the eyes. What else is there that can be done? Now, if he doesn't, he needs to go see a coach or a therapist and work this out. My question would be, is it my responsibility to get his brother to stop talking to me or lightly flirting with me? Honestly, it's harmless. So now you're admitting that you lightly flirt. I can see how one would call it flirting. Is this something he should be confronting his brother directly on, or am I supposed to tell the brother to fuck off? That's a really good question. I think that he should have a conversation with his brother, but he also knows his brother probably isn't going to respond to that. Secondly, you're in the relationship with him. If you know that you got to create what lines you want to cross or not cross within your personality. Going out of your way to just avoid talking to the guy altogether, I don't know if that's the answer in family gatherings. But you and your you and your boyfriend need to talk about this and create expectations and boundaries, right? And he needs to have a chat with his brother about it. I mean, I didn't do anything wrong here. I don't think it sounds like you did, unless I didn't get to witness this part where you're like light flirting. I mean, what's light flirting? How can we make this right? Should I ask his parents to call a family meeting? I don't think that's going to be taken seriously by the cocky brother. I think that might make things worse. And you've already said that your boyfriend wants to take a break. I'm just curious if it's more than just this brother, if he's using this as a scapegoat. Because if he can't deal with this, let me put it to you this way. You got a 7-year age difference, you're 23, let's just assume you're pretty good looking. If he can't deal with the fact that his brother kind of lightly flirts with you at family gatherings and can't get over that when it's just, once a month, and he blames you, where is this headed? Is he going to be jealous all the time? So definitely don't do the family meeting, okay? That's not going to work, and the brother's not going to take it seriously. Let your boyfriend have some time to figure out what he wants to do, and then when you sit down with him, tell him, I'm not responsible for your insecurities. Yeah, your brother talks to me at family gatherings. He's a flirtatious guy. I don't have interest in him. You have to consider the fact that I am loyal, and trust me, we're not having interactions outside of those events. You don't give him your phone number. That's where there's a line to be crossed. You don't meet with him outside of family events, right? He's going to have to deal with the fact that his brother's like that, or like I said, he can confront his brother on his own. Now, how can we make this right? Like I said, you need to sit down and talk about it and not push it to the side. And your boyfriend needs to come to the table without making accusations that you're doing things wrong, right? And he has to be honest with himself. Is this deeper than just your relationship, or is he just highly jealous of his brother? Should I ask his parents to call a family meeting? No. Short answer, no. Honestly, I think the little brother would just make a joke out of it. I agree. What's the best way we can get through this? Give him his time and space that he's asked for. When you talk again, have a sit-down conversation where you listen to each other. And I'd highly recommend using, let me pull this up. It's called the non-violent communication method. Observation, feelings, needs, and request. So you observe what happened, number one. Observing what happened, let me pull this up really quick if I can. Let's see here. Does it come up? No. Of course it doesn't. All right, so no, it's not showing. All right, so nonviolent communication here is observation, feelings, needs, and requests. So the observation here would be, number one, you're observing that basically you're jealous that I'm talking to your brother, and you're jealous of your brother overall. Your feelings. I feel confused, and I don't know what to do because I'm telling you the truth. I feel uncomfortable that you're accusing me of things I didn't do wrong. What's my need? I need you to believe me when I tell you I don't have interest in your brother. What's the request? Can we get through this? We only have family gatherings once a month with your parents. I really enjoy being around your parents. Do you think you can get through the fact that your brother's like this? Or if you have a problem with your brother, can you talk to him directly? Because I don't think it's my place. Observation, feelings, needs. 4 elements of the nonviolent communication method. It's a very good communication method by the great Marshall Rosenberg. And when you sit down and talk to him, use that method. Don't get into, because a lot of people go straight to feelings and go straight to requests. The observation part is important because it puts a spotlight on the actual problem, right? All right, Truth of Life, thanks for the compliment on the haircut. This has been good today. We're not going to go any deeper, I don't think, into the dating apps. We had a few other videos on deck. But they go longer than I think sometimes. Rob says parents call a family meeting. That makes it worse. People get into this a lot, right? She's 23, he's 30, but she said the parents like her. People, oh, the parents like me. The parents like me. So then they want to get the parents involved. The parents, if they like you or they don't like you, majority of the time they're still going to take their kids' side. And then now you got this interesting thing where the brother's involved, which is their son, right? They're going to be more close to the brother. That's just how it is. So you're opening up a can of worms here in a situation where you're the only one that's not a family member. So if you say anything kind of bad about the brother or kind of bad about the guy, the parents are going to clam up and maybe even go against you. So you're 23 years old, he's 30 years old. You don't need to get your parents involved in it, right? You need to have an adult conversation about it. All right, this is what I'll do. I'm going to go one more video, how to date Lex Friedman. And this was an interesting conversation. Let me share this real quick. How you doing, Sabina? Let's see here.
Just love life or life.
Yeah, well, not necessarily on careers, but I can give advice on the mating,
Yes.
and I think it's one of these things where, we have requirements for the courses that students have to take in high school, for example, and I think there should be a required course on relationships, on mating.
So not just sex.
Yeah, not
Mating.
just sex at all. Yeah, because I mean, most of what's taught is they teach about sexual health and how not to get an STI and so forth.
Yeah, my teacher put a condom on a banana.
Right. But
It's very exciting.
But how to select a mate? How do you know if you're in a bad mating relationship? How to get out of a bad mating relationship? I think that there's, at this point in the science, even though there's a lot that we don't know, we know enough to at least provide some heuristics or general guidelines to things to watch out for. So just as a concrete example, with intimate partner violence, and this is male to female, there are statistical predictors of, does he have an increased probability of beating you up? And there are things like if he starts to insist on knowing where you are at all times, if he starts cutting off your relationships with your friends and your family. So there are these kind of early warning signs, and I think women should know about those. Or even things like that women are most in danger of being killed by an ex during the first 3 to 6 months after they've broken up with him. That sometimes they think it's, the guy will say, oh, meet with me one last time and then I won't bother you again. No, this is a dangerous time. So I think there's some knowledge that we do know that can be used to make informed decisions about our mating lives. And I think that should be taught.
So consider that, like, take that the mating strategies, the mating life seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And because aside from a small number of people who are totally uninterested in any kind of mating or sexuality, and there are a small percentage that fall into that category, we all confront problems of mating.
How do you, there's that called the mathematical model, like secretary problem, marriage problem. I don't know if you're familiar, but basically you have it's a silly, perhaps not. It's a formalized, simplified queuing theory type of thing where you have n subjects and you get to date some number of people, and then there's a stopping condition. I believe it's n/e, beyond which you pick the next partner, which is better than anybody you've dated before. So let's not overemphasize that idea, but if I were to psychologize it, I would say that some exploration is good, some dating is good, but at a certain point, you pick somebody. Given the set of people you've explored, you pick somebody who is pretty desirable within that group.
Yeah. But I would add that what you also want to do is you want to mate with someone who's equivalent in mate value, or has, even what's more difficult is has a likely equivalent future mate value trajectory, because nothing remains static.
Yes, that's beautiful.
But it's also the case that there are individual things, we haven't talked about these, but things like religious orientation, political orientation, values. These are extremely important to be compatible on. And so you do have cases of, let's say, a Democrat marrying a...
Okay, so this is just interesting because it's the context of this individual giving advice for himself. So it's like Lex Friedman. Would you get advice from him for dating advice? He's a great interviewer. He seems very intelligent on a lot of different levels, but like, he's like, oh, it would be ideal to find the equivalent to you. But here's the thing. In real life, and especially when people are in their 19 up to like 25, 26, attraction's going to win the day. Okay, so someone's not going to sit back and go, let me see if the equivalent, let me see if I can find the equivalent projection of their future. Who's going to do that outside of someone that's into the sciences, right? Like that, he's giving advice for himself. This is what happens like online too. It's either regurgitated advice, or it's like he's actually giving this out like, this is a good thing to do. This is what I would do because I'm 67 years old with all this life experience. I could teach you this. And it's not a bad intention. It's a great intention, because he's like, oh, in the name of meeting a less dangerous guy, great idea, great concept. In the name, but it's like, but you're erasing the fact that when someone's 22 and they're entering the world of dating, and they might have entered it a lot earlier, who knows? Attraction wins the day, right? So they're going to make decisions based on that a lot of times. And so you giving advice like from, your elder chair as a scientist, and research shows and studies show, and Lex is like, this is fascinating. He uses fascinating. It's like, is it going to trump the fact if someone thinks someone else is really good looking and they start dating and they get those juices flowing, and they're going to go back to that class that was taught that was esoteric and scientific, right? It's like, this is what happens too. It's like, oh, because he's a scientist, let me give him some advice on mating. All right, let me give him some. So basically, you want to find someone who's the equivalent to you, or has the trajectory to be the equivalent of you in the future. Great concept, right? Do people stop and take notes as they're dating and go, let me see. Most men are like, First of all, like I said, number one thing that comes up if you ask me, being a coach that deals with a lot of breakups, is guys will stay with a woman that is bad news. I'll just not even use the word toxic because it's just so overused. They're not happy with, which is she's a wreck mentally. There's fights all the time, but she's really hot and the intimacy's good. The guy will stay with her most of the time. And he won't even know until we get into a coaching session, and then you go into it and you're like, hey, man, do you trust her? No, I don't trust her. No, she's crazy. She's a psychopath. It's like, how's the intimacy? Outstanding. Well, that's what's keeping you in the relationship. And this guy's saying like, oh, look for the equivalent involved in the relationship. The trajectory for them to be equivalent. Like, on what level equivalent? What you're losing in this whole equivalence, right, is attraction. And how that's usually the match that sparks the fire, okay? Now, when you get older and you have less hormones, I would say, you have less of that, attraction still counts, but not as much. Now, if you're a scientific person, what you're attracted to, like this guy, will be different probably. But I've noticed, in these in these conversations, right? Coming at it from this standpoint, it's not a bad idea, by the way, that he says that there should be more educational classes on relationships. Great idea. How you presented that wouldn't be the way that he's presenting it right now in this scientific light, and just completely neglecting the fact that attraction isn't a choice, right? Who you're attracted to. There's pheromones, there's all kinds of things involved there. A lot of times what people learn from is experience. It's like, show me a person that believes in ghosts, right? And there's plenty of people that believe in ghosts out there, right? And that person will say, I remember when I saw a ghost. They'll have an experience, right? So if I taught someone a class on ghosts and they hadn't seen one yet, it just wouldn't resonate unless I showed evidence of it, right? And so that's why when you get into a breakup or you get into a relationship, really what you're going on is the evidence of your past. But if you have someone that you really respect, you might pick up a few things. But this whole idea of explaining equivalency and, these dimensions and research and study shows, good luck teaching that to someone in their early 20s, late teens on and trumping attraction, right? Let's see what any more gems come from this.
Republican, and that sometimes works, but you're going to get into a lot of conflict, other things being equal, or someone who's deeply religious versus someone who is not at all religious. This is going to be a problem, or someone who's of a different religious faith, and so compatibility on those things, compatibility also on personality dimensions. I think there's some main effects. So I would recommend avoiding that dimension we talked about of emotional instability, because if you sign up for that, you at least should know you're going to be in for a lot of conflict. It may be exciting at times, but there's going to be a lot of ups and downs.
Know what you sign up for. What about how much to date? So there's a culture. I'm speaking soon to a founder and longtime ex-CEO of Tinder. So there's that culture of digitalized dating, of swipe right, swipe left. Is it positive, negative? How much should you date?
Yeah.
What's the number? And also, what number of sexual partners should you? What's optimal? Asking for a friend.
I don't know if there's a single optimum there.
I was hoping
there was. I think that
is it single digits or double digits? I need answers.
Well, I don't know. I get some of my wisdom from lyrics from songs. So
me too.
There's this Eagles song. I think Don Henley, said like a lyric of "Too many lovers in one lifetime ain't good for you," or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think there is a
Take It Easy is a good one too.
Yeah.
Or basically don't get too attached. Don't take heartbreak too seriously.
Yeah. So, but I think, internet dating, and there's been some work on them. I think has its pluses and minuses. And one of the pluses is it gives you access to potential pools of mates that you could never possibly meet in real life.
Go back to that really quick. Lex was like, I'm just asking for a friend. Jeez, man, you got this huge platform. These questions, I'm asking for a friend. Like, what does that usually mean? You're asking for yourself. Come on, man. It's like, and what a question. Like, how many, like, you get to a certain age and you don't usually ask that question. Anyone that's in the chat right now, tell me I'm wrong. Do you date and ask, like, how many people you've been with, and then do you decide, like, I'm not going to be with them? Or can you kind of tell you're with someone that's been promiscuous in the past and you either accept that or you don't? I mean, to come up with a number to ask someone in your interview, so can you give me a number of, like, what it should be? That's a ridiculous question, because you can decide that for yourself, right? If you're one of those people and you're just like, wow, I would never be with someone that's been with 10 partners before, 20 partners before. It's like, number one, why are you threatened by that? Because guys, a lot of times what threatens them, you know what it is it really upsets a guy if the woman's been with more than he has. right? That's kind of a big one. I think that breeds more insecurity. Truth of Life says you can tell the first time you sleep with them. I don't know if that's true, but I think that it's possible. But you could also say that, like, why would that be a deal breaker? What would be the reason for that being a deal breaker would be my question. And, like, how would this guy know the magic number of who? Because here's the thing. If someone's, had a stage in their life, maybe college or university, where they just let their hair down and they just wanted to have fun and they were safe about it and they don't have any ramifications dealing with it later on, then, I mean, what's the difference? But on the flip side, it's like, yeah, so what's the number that you shouldn't date? And I'm asking for a friend. What you're going to put that in your resume? You're acting like, when you date someone, you have this list out and you're like, all right, this is the number one question. I need to know how many people you've been with because I want to make sure you're not with more people than I. Is the real question. That's the real question usually. Women don't usually ask. Women don't usually want to know, right? I would say I don't have any research on that or studies. Guys want to know more than women because they want to know about loyalty and honesty. But here's my thing. If you have to ask, you probably already know what the answer is going to be if you have any sort of intuition or emotional intelligence, right? And if that's the case, there's going to be problems. If you're already kind of insecure about that they've been with more people, even if you had a number, if the attraction is high enough, people won't pay attention to it. I agree. It'll eat at them when they're upset with that person. That's the thing. If it's a high number and they have a problem with that high number, whenever you have a problem with that individual, it will bubble up and you'll get more pissed off and you'll think about it more. So that's when it'll come up. Let's see if we can finish this off a little bit.
Where mating and dating used to be either people you knew or friends of friends, or you go out to bars or parties. But so that's the good thing, gives you access to those extended pools, but also it gives people the illusion that there's always someone better out there for you, someone who's just a little more attractive, a little more compatible, a little more. And so it produces what's sometimes called decision paralysis. You have too many options and you can't choose. I think one other potential negative, which I think could be corrected by these internet dating sites, is that the picture, the photographs, of the face and body tend to overwhelm all other sources of information. And so, especially if you're just looking for a sex partner, that's one thing. Physical appearances, it's fine for that to be overwhelmingly important. But if you're looking for a long-term mate, there's so many other things that are really, really important. And so, but people tend to be swamped by the visual input, which is natural because that's where we're evolved to respond to visual input. We're not evolved to respond to words, like, I like to go fishing or something like that. So if there's some way for these sites to, in long-term mating, for these other characteristics to be made more salient in people's information processing, I think that would be a valuable improvement.
Yeah, because even forget long-term beauty, even sex appeal is like even the word appearance. It feels like to me people that are super sexy in real life are a lot more than their picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's actually surprising. Like they come to life in different ways.
Yes.
It could be either submissiveness as shyness or extravagant wit and humor, or like super confident or super like whatever they are, whatever the weirdness that they are comes through immediately. So when people say, well, which is the case of the sort of proponents of dating apps, it's like, well, when you meet somebody at a bar, you're getting the same experience as you do on a dating site. You have very little information. All you get is appearance. But I don't think appearance on the screen is the same as appearance in real life.
Yeah.
Especially with people that for some reason you find super sexy. Because and again, the objectification that we mentioned earlier is the it over optimizes for people who are good at taking pictures of themselves. Like they're representing themselves inaccurately. They're not just even in the physical features, but in the way those physical features are used in physical reality, like in terms of body language, in terms of flirtation, in terms of just everything put together. So I just I wonder if there's a way to close that gap. And I don't know what that is exactly. I tend to believe more information is good on dating. I don't use actually dating apps. I just because they don't make any sense to me because there's not enough information. Like what this like to me, like whether you know Dostoevsky or not is important. And I don't mean that because you read specifically a book by Dostoevsky, but there's something about, have you suffered? Have you thought about life deeply? Have you been shaken in some way? And that's not, sometimes books can reveal that, sometimes something else can reveal that, but this kind of very shallow resume, like, I like to travel, I have boobs.
Right.
It's like this kind of thing it loses the humanity of it all.
Yeah.
Because listen, as a fan of technology, I would love dating to open up, like you said, the pool of possibilities out there. The soulmate idea, like, I believe that there's an incredible people out there for you that is an emotional connection, not just a physical connection. And so that the promise of digital tech is that you can discover those people. And that's not just for romantic relationship, it's for friendships, it's for business partners, it's for all that kind of stuff, like your friend groups. But yeah, there's something seems broken about dating sites.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I mean, when I'm asked for advice on this, I say, if you feel like you have a connection with someone, meet them in person. You meet them.
Great advice. Great advice. I would say that there's so many long distance relationships right now that I've come across doing what I do, where people have never met before and they've been together a year, 6 months, 3 months. This is really common. And this is one of those things, like, it's kind of shocking to a lot of people, but I think it's here to stay. I think that movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix is a real serious possibility in the future, where there's going to be individuals that have someone they talk to, and I'm not just saying like sexting and all that other stuff, and that's their partner that they fall for because they don't leave the house. But I think one of the things I agree with this guy is that even if you do let's say you meet a good match, let's say you meet someone that's attractive, let's say you have good intimacy, let's say you date well, let's say their body count's at a good rate for you or whatever. But you're on that dating app and you leave your photo up, and let's just say you're one of those people that gets, more than average amount of swipes or likes, and someone else swipes you or someone else sends you a message, and you start dating that individual, 1 or 2, 3 more times, and you think to yourself, wow, I still have these other options that might be better. And so that does get in your head of that paradox of choice. That absolutely is one of the biggest ones, is you finding someone that you're interested in. To me, and this is just my opinion, this isn't expertise, this is just my way of, when I get into a monogamous long-term relationship, right, where I start to develop what I would call real love, not just like you're in love, it takes time. It's like, it's not going to just happen in a day. It's not a soulmate thing. The individual grows on you, and they get it gets a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But if you have all these options, and that person does one thing wrong, or they don't show up because they were caught in traffic, or they say something that you didn't really like about politics, and you got 3 people on deck on your Tinder app, you're going to be more apt to be like, you know what, I won't even talk to them again. So that's one of the scenarios that gets in there. All right, I'm going to go through the chat really quick if there's anything that stood out. If you guys have any closing questions, let me know your take on if you like this kind of format, kind of reviewing some of these videos, or if you have a topic you want me to go on, put it in the comments below. If you have a story you want to send it in to writemac.com. There'll be more stories coming, and I will be back on deck tomorrow at a little bit later time if anyone's up. Otherwise, it's curtains. Have a good one.